rundown of my profile so you know exactly whom is speaking with you this afternoon. Like I said previously, my name is also Samuel, and I'm a consultant with the Bias for Sustainability Interventions and Media Engagement. I'm actually a practicing journalist. I'm the editor of Environmental Africa magazine, a digital and online platform, which is the publisher of the biennial top 100 environment professionals in Nigeria listing and the annual P Awards, Sustainability, Environment, and Advocacy honors. Worked on several renewable energy projects and environmental projects as well, including a lot of advocacy and communications campaigns. I currently volunteer for various organizations in the clean energy, environment, and water space, and I'm so much glad to be part of this whole process. Thank you so very much and First and News for having me anchor this constructive session. Before starting up, Boyega Olonfemi, who is the program who is going to give us what compromise is all about, Mr. Boyega.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sam. Can I proceed?
A minute, please. Before Mr. Boyega starts speaking, I would like to enjoin everyone who has come online to please check the chat box. You see the attendance sheet, fill it, so we have a record of who is on this webinar session with us. Thank you very much. So Mr. Boyega is going to commence his address. Mr. Boyega, the mic is yours, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Awusi, for this moment. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Boyega Olonfemi. I'm the project lead for the Society for Planet and Prosperity. I'd like to welcome you all to this series, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has participated since the very first series of the 4 sessions in this series. We started with one, looking at the UNFCCC, understanding UNFCCC in the real sense of it, and of course the UNFCCC governance structure. This also took us to the second week, where we looked at the other topics around that we scheduled, knowing more about climate justice and other related concepts. And of course, we discussed the concept of nationally determined contribution and the Paris Agreement. That was what we did on week 2. And of course, last week, many of you were with us when we had a conversation about the overview of the UNFCCC negotiations process, and at the same time, understanding the negotiation streams at COP29. Today, we are here to wrap up this series, and of course, we will be discussing some very major aspects of this series that we put together, understanding the major groups and constituencies, and of course, media engagement. I'd like to say, on behalf of this Center for 21st Century Issues and Enviro News Development Network, I welcome you all to this episode of this series. And I want to say, once again, thank you for joining us. It has been a very amazing journey to have some of you leaders volunteer when there was no funding for this project. And I also like to say again that last year, We received very small amount of money to put this project together, but we didn't want us to go into COP29 without also engaging with one another, which is very key to drive CSO's activities and engagement across this very sought after global convention. So we want to encourage as many of you that will be in Baku to ensure that the knowledge that you have gathered in engaging with us through this series is put to great use, and of course to also see how we enhance negotiations for Nigeria as a country and amplifying our voice for climate vulnerable countries. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to a successful series for today. Thank you. Mr. Sam, you may then take the mic.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Olorunfemi, for that wonderful welcome address. It's instructive that you took us through the commencement of this whole process, the workshops that have been handled, all those and the topics that have been discussed. We thank you so very much for the efforts the SPP, Enviro News, and C21 has put into all this. Moving further, I'm going to set some ground rules before we commence. We will have 2 sessions today, 2 topics basically. Both of them will be 20 minutes. We are going to allocate 20 minutes for each speaker. And if possible, we hope each speaker will try as much as possible to be brief, so that we can brief and very concise. And at the end of the each particular speaker's allotted time, we are not going to take questions immediately. We expect that everyone should put their questions down. After the 2 speakers have spoken, we are not going to have a question and answer session. Please do not forget your questions. If you cannot remember them, put them down on the chat box or write them out somewhere. And while the speakers are presenting, their presentations will be shown on the screen for everyone to follow along. And I'm sure that after this whole session, the copies of their presentations will also be sent across to all those who have attended and who have registered for this. I repeat, please do not forget your questions, and also do not forget to fill the attendance sheet, which has been put on the chat box. Thank you so very much. Moving on, we are going to have our first speaker of the day. We will speak on understanding the UNFCCC major groups and constituencies, and that's in the person of Mr. John Backey. John Backey is an experienced environmentalist, climate change, and gender activist. He holds a first degree in geography and a master's degree in international affairs and diplomacy. John also has a lot of robust experience in climate change diplomacy and sustainable development. He has participated in several conferences of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is our focus today. And interestingly, he is currently the Deputy Executive Director at Women Environmental Program. What that means is that he has officially been made a he for she advocate. So that's extremely interesting. A non-governmental organization championing climate justice and women's rights issues. So we want to welcome Mr. John Backey for this first topic, and he's going to be speaking on understanding the UNFCCC major groups. Okay, yes, Deputy Executive Director. So the mic is yours, Mr. Backey.
Thank you very much to you, Wenga, for the introduction. It is my pleasure to be given this opportunity to share my experience with all of you. Let me confirm that you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, you can, Mr. John.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you give me the access to share my slide, I will appreciate. or you may choose to share it from your end, whichever one you choose.
Hello, Dami, can you effect that, please?
You can share. You're a co-host. You can share. Please go ahead and
All
share.
right, thank you very much. So give me a moment so that I will get out my slide.
Hello, Mr. Faki. Okay, all right, you're still screen sharing.
All right, can you see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Hello, can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So thank you once again for this opportunity, and I will be speaking on understanding the UNFCCC's major groups and constituencies. As a way of introduction, let me start by saying that the UNFCCC came into being in 1945, and the aim was to maintain international peace and security, establish friendly relations among countries, solve international issues of social, economic, humanitarian, environmental nature, protect human rights of people, among other aims. So in a bid to achieve this, the United Nations decided to, during the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in 1992, in a bid to open up the space so that other stakeholders too will contribute, other than the government of countries that are signatories to the United Nations. Major groups were created, and 9 major groups were created at the 1992 Conference on Environment and Development. So these 9 major groups were based on the recognition that achieving sustainable development will require the active participation of all sectors of the society, irrespective of whether you are from the government, the civil society organization, indigenous groups, or or a local authority. So these 9 major groups were created: women, children and youth, indigenous peoples, NGOs, local authorities, down to farmers. This was a way of opening up the UN system so that different groups that have stake in the UN system can make contributions to the programs and initiatives of the United Nations, so that United Nations will not be an exclusive reserve of government institutions that make up the United Nations alone. And that is why these major groups were created. So in all the UN conventions, whether it is under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or whether it is under the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or whether it is under Minamata Convention on Mercury, or Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention, or any convention at all of the United Nations, there is this space created you have this reflection of the 9 major groups that were created during the 1992 convention. Although it may not be called major groups in the different UN conventions, they still are a reflection of these 9 major groups, even though they may be called by a different name. Just like under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, they are called constituencies or observer organizations. You have similar arrangement under the United Nations Environment Program, where it is called major groups and stakeholders, but they are still categorized along these lines of the 9 major groups that were formed during the 1992 conference. So the names of these major groups, as I said, they slightly change from conference to conference, from a convention to convention. So under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we
Please
can
go
hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. So under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, you also have these 9 major groups mirrored. So here you have business and industry, you have environmental NGOs, you have farmers and agricultural NGOs, indigenous peoples organizations, local government and municipal authorities, research and independent NGOs, trade unions, women and gender constituency, children and youth. This is how the 9 major groups are named under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And as I said, there are avenues through which stakeholders that are not government agencies make their views, make their contributions to the activities of the conventions. So since 2016, the Secretariat has recognized the following major groups. So you have faith-based organizations. So aside these 9 major groups that were recognized prior to 2016, in 2016, different groups also came up that a major group or a constituency be created for them. And these 3 groups were recognized from 2016 by the UNFCCC. Faith-based organizations, education, communication, and outreach stakeholders, and parliamentarians. These informal NGO groups do not enjoy all privilege of an official constituency, but their morning coordination meetings can be announced on CCTV and in the daily program, and they receive a certain amount of tickets to limited access meetings, such as opening ceremonies. So in other words, although these groups have been recognized now, they have not yet attained that status of the 9 constituencies that you already have at the UNFCCC. You can say that they are already represented, or they were already represented among any of these 9 constituencies, but because everyone wants their interests to be pushed out, to be identified, their crave to have their space was recognized, and they were recognized by the UNFCCC. So moving on, let's look at the roles of constituencies in climate change negotiations. So at the negotiations, as you may be aware, negotiations happen among the parties, that is governments that are parties to the convention, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and parties to the agreements entered into by parties to the convention, like the Paris Agreement and the Kyoto Protocol. It is only these parties, the government, that are allowed to negotiate. So you may ask, what is the role of the constituencies, the 9 major groups in climate change negotiations, since they are not authorized, they have no authority to be in those negotiation rooms and negotiate, make input on behalf of a country or on behalf of a continent or on behalf of a group. So although they are not mandated to speak or to participate in those meetings, they have critical roles that they play in this negotiation process. So one, they support the accreditation of participants to the UNFCCC's conferences and serve as the conduit through which the UNFCCC pass information to different groups. So for a virtue of the fact that you are a member or you are a constituency, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change communicates with you all its plans, all its processes, and even some of the information that parties have already deliberated on. They will share them with you and call for input. So you are still making input indirectly into the negotiations. Even as you are not present in the negotiation rooms, there are ways that you still have the opportunity to make this input. And I think the reason for this, for not allowing civil society organizations or these constituencies into the negotiation rooms, is just for order. Yeah, so that there will be more order in the negotiations. So another role that could be played by the constituencies is to amplify the voices of local communities at climate change conferences through the different activities that they carry out at these events. So civil society organizations or members of different major groups could organize side event protests. They could speak at plenaries in some of these side events based on the issues that they want to see incorporated or come out of the negotiations. So through these side events, they make their contributions. And because some of these side events are attended by parties, parties also learn of the issues that the major group wants to see in the negotiation. And they adapt some of these issues and they come out of the negotiation as the outcome of the negotiations affecting those particular major groups. Representatives of the constituency are also given opportunities to speak at some plenaries, like during the opening sessions of COPs and some plenary sessions. Representative of constituencies are allowed to speak. So they have opportunity to articulate what they want for their constituency, what they want reflected in negotiations. So generally, constituency can influence negotiations in the following ways. They could conduct and present research findings and recommendations to parties during different side events. They could organize informal meetings with negotiators and share their positions. They could participate and observe official open meetings to inform their advocacy actions. Or they can even support negotiators with information they need to make input into negotiation texts. Major groups also can organize peaceful protests during climate change conferences to push their demands. They can organize cross-constituency actions to influence decisions. All these are the different ways that civil society organizations ensure that they make input into the negotiation, even as they have no authority to participate or speak in the negotiation rooms. So in addition to some of the things that I already said they will do, they can organize capacity building events for members to enhance their understanding of the structure of the UNFCCC and the status of negotiations and how to contribute to shaping it. So what we are doing here now is another way of contributing to the negotiations that Society for Planet and Prosperity and Center for 21st Century Issues is doing. This is a capacity building opportunity to learn more about the process, so that when you find yourself at any of those meetings, you will understand the process and know how better to engage and make input into it. There's something, however, I want you to note, that operating as an independent observer organization at climate change conferences is not effective. You are more effective when you operate under a constituency. What I mean by this is that Center for Issues, for example, may not shout so loud for people to hear and for response to be given to their shout if they decide to operate alone at that space, because it is a very big space that one man's action or one organization's action is like a drop in the ocean. So your actions are louder when they are organized under a constituency. This is because constituencies are recognized by the UNFCCC, and they are given more ears than individual organizations. So it is better to operate as a constituency than operating as an individual organization. And that is why if you find yourself at conferences of parties, constituencies have strategy meetings every morning or evening as they decided to meet to strategize, and as a constituency share their members to different meetings to observe and make inputs where appropriate and bring feedback to the constituency. And on that feedback, the constituency could strategize to know what next to do. So that is why it is important not to operate alone at that space, but to find yourself within a constituency. So if you are not a member of a constituency and you are not a representative of a government, it is advisable that you find a constituency to belong to. Most of the constituencies, there is no special registration that is required for you to attend their meetings. So once you find yourself at the conference of parties, you will first check up on the different constituencies that are there, decide on the one that aligns with the work that you do, know where they meet and go for their meetings, introduce yourself, and then they will let you know how you can join their listserv or their WhatsApp group or any of their communication platform, and how you can participate. So you are not even limited on how you can participate as a member of a constituency, irrespective of whether you are joining them today or tomorrow, as long as you are enthusiastic to contribute to what they are doing. And that becomes a very open platform for you to maximize the opportunity to also advance your own work. So going further, there are alternative spaces that civil society organizations can participate. That is in addition to the major groups that I have spoken about. For civil society organizations, working through major groups, or major group is our primary space to participate at COPs. But in addition to the major groups, there are other spaces that you can also have opportunities to participate at COPs. So for like accredited civil society organizations, you can have side events as an organization at the blue zone if you are an accredited organization. So registration for side event and exhibition is always done ahead of the COP, and the blue zone, which is managed by the UNFCCC, is open to civil society organizations who are accredited observer organizations, and you can host your side events there, but you have to apply on time before the close of registration. So this is another space that you can exhibit what you are doing at the COP, or you can share the results of the findings from any research you may have conducted that will help to shape negotiations at the COP. The green zone is another space where civil society organizations can also host their activities. Unlike the blue zone, the green zone is open to the public as well. So even if you are not an accredited observer organization, you have access to the green zone, although you have to still go through some registration, some access control to access the green zone, but it's more open than the blue zone. So that is another space that as a civil society organization, you can host your activities if you find yourself at the COPs. So interested civil society organization can inquire how to have access and benefit from these alternative spaces. So if you find yourself at the COP, you will see different color of badges. So every badge has an access limit attached to it. If you can see my screen, you will see the purple color is the color of the badges for parties. Blue is for observers, UN observer organizations. Green is for IGO observers. And then you have orange for civil society organizations. And then you have media. So these are the different colors of badges that show who the carrier of that badge is. So as an observer, as someone who carries the badge of an observer non-governmental organization, you have limited access. There are some of the meetings that you do not have access, you were not allowed to go in. So most of the negotiation meetings are closed. So if you have an observer badge, you will not be allowed to go into such meetings. But if you have a party badge, it allows you more access to several meetings. And then media also have their limit, and civil society also have their limit in the media space created during the meetings. So how do you get accreditation for COP? Those who are interested to participate at any conference of parties must first be accredited. So individuals who are interested get accreditation, and you get this accreditation from organizations who have been accredited as observer organizations, or from parties, that is governments who are parties to the UNFCCC. They can give you accreditation, and that is the only way you will have access to the conference venue, to the blue zone. The accreditation also supports the visa process for participants, and your type of accreditation will determine your access and limit, just as I said. Then accreditation of the media is done by the UNFCCC Secretariat, unlike the accreditation for civil society organizations or people that work with NGOs. These observer organizations can give you accreditation, or parties can give you accreditation, but if you want to participate in the conference as a media organization, you have to be accredited by the UNFCCC Secretariat. The process of doing that will better be explained by the session on media participation at the COPs. So in conclusion, the participation of the civil society at UNFCCC COPs is very important in shaping the outcome of the negotiation and bringing the voices of the local communities and the vulnerable into the negotiations. The structure and process of the UNFCCC are very complicated, and it takes diligent study to understand it to better contribute to decisions at that level. Constituencies help to bridge that gap between the UNFCCC and the individual accredited organizations. And so it is encouraged to join a constituency for more information and access to some decision-making structures at the UNFCCC. It is also important to learn about the issues that are on the agenda for the discussion at this year's COP and what the position of your country is on these issues. This will shape the strategy and alliances for better advocacy at COP29. So briefly, talking about issues that will be discussed at this year's COP, some of the issues that will come on the agenda or that are on the agenda are issues of adaptations, issues of loss and damage, issues of climate finance, and of course, gender issues, which is a primary issue to me. The discussion on the operationalization and funding of loss and damage fund will continue, and that is of interest to civil society organizations and to Africa, which is a continent that suffers the irreversible damage from the impacts of climate change. The Crave for Adaptation Fund, Green Climate Fund, and different other sources of climate finance will still continue because the need for addressing climate change continues to increase, and funding is needed for that. And pledges that have been made by several developed countries have not been redeemed, while the impacts of climate change continue. So developing countries will be looking out for redeeming of pledges of different climate financial pledges by developed countries, while also looking at ways of assessing those finances to help climate change adaptation in our different countries that are vulnerable to the impact of climate change. So let me pause here for now for questions and contributions. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. John Baki. That was quite enlightening, and I'm very sure most of our participants, if not all of them, really do appreciate the time and effort you've taken to put this together. It simplifies a lot of the questions and the concerns quite a number of us have had over the whole issue of parties and constituencies. With regards to questions, I want to plead your indulgence if you could wait till after the second presentation, then we can take the questions all together, because I'm very sure that there are a couple of questions that might touch on both areas of interest, and it would be good to take them all together. Thank you so very much for that. And please, once again, if you do have questions, put them on the chat box or write them down so that immediately after the second presentation, we can actually, you have the opportunity of asking those questions and raising the concerns you have. Once again, the attendance sheet is still on the platform. Please fill the attendance sheet so that we can know who is here with us. Thank you very much. Before presenting the I'm going to present the second speaker right now, who is going to take us on media engagement and coordination at COP29, and that is Mr. Michael Ohioze-Simire. He's a well-known journalist, science journalist and writer and documentalist, and as well as a media trainer and mentor to so many of us in the environmental journalism space. And incidentally, he's also an urban planner. He's also an urban planner. He has worked as an environmental journalist for over 25 years. That is a lot of years. That's a lot of years. He holds a diploma in science journalism. what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paraphrase this because he has so many accolades attached to his name. And he holds a diploma in science journalism. He is a member of the World Federation of Science Journalists. He's also a member of the Environmental Journalist Network. He also is a Climate Change Media Partnership Fellow, as well as a Fellow of Leadership for Environment and Development. He is also a member of the African Network of Environmental Journalists, Nigerian Association of Science Journalists, Guild of Corporate Online Publishers of Nigeria, GOCOP, Nigeria Institute of Town Planners, and he's also registered with the Town Planners Registration Council of Nigeria, which is TopReg. He has worked in several media organizations, including the Guardian, Punch, and Daily Independent, and currently he's the editor-in-chief of Enviro News Nigeria, which is a multimedia online news magazine that focuses on issues related to environment, science, health, and development. As a journalist and researcher, he has undertaken academic research, written, published, and presented numerous pieces on climate change, science and technology, renewable energy, water and sanitation, agriculture, biotechnology, safety, nature conservation, and human settlement cities, among others. While he traveled, he is also a winner of numerous awards, and he has worked closely with the Federal Ministry of Environment and United Nations Systems UNDP Office in environmental management, awareness, advocacy under projects like the African Adaptation Program, UN RED Program, National Climate Change Policy, National Environment Policy, as well as the nationally determined contribution. What that tells us is that Mr. Simire has been a part and parcel of every significant environmental and climate change intervention in Nigeria over the last 25 years. And there's no better person who can take us through media engagements and coordination at COP29. Incidentally, or rather, unfortunately, Mr. Simire is not present with us right now. He had a conflicting engagement, a national engagement actually, and he has requested that I undertake his presentation for him. I hope I can do justice to that. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, let me share my screen right now. Okay. I seem to be having a little issue with sharing. Danny, could you help me put up Mr. Simire's presentation? Hello, Danny, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Simi is doing that.
Okay,
Simi will
wonderful.
share.
Okay, good. Okay. Here you go. Okay, great. One thing we need to understand from media engagements and coordination at COP29 is that the UNFCCC process is probably the largest gathering of climate change experts across the globe. and it's held annually every year. And what that means is that it's a huge media fest for climate change issues and concerns. Every year you have hundreds, if not thousands, of media organizations from across the world coming together, heading to the UNFCCC to report on every single issue that is discussed over there. However, we also need to recognize that because of the varied interest and negotiations and discussions happening at every year's COP, it's almost impossible for a single media organization to record all or report on every single conversation going on there. So what that means is that, can you just put up the first slide? Okay, good, wonderful. So what that means basically is that when planning for COP29, media must go with a strategy, must go with a plan on how to actually cover the COP and get the benefits of that COP participation. So we're going to start with the media structure within the COP. Basically, the whole structure is designed to facilitate global coverage of the events, negotiations, and discussions that take place during this international climate conference. Now, media accreditation, the journalists and media organizations must apply for accreditation. Mr. Baki touched on that previously, through the UNFCCC to attend COP. This process ensures that only legitimate media outlets are allowed access to the event. Accredited media gain access to most areas of the COP venue, including plenary sessions, press conferences, and side events. Types of accreditation, there are usually distinctions between different types of media, such as general media, broadcast media, online media, and photographers. Now, talking about media accreditation, the UNFCCC, they have an online platform called Indigo, where media start prior to starting your accreditation process. And when you start your accreditation process, usually you must have a letter of accreditation, of which has to put in that, okay, such and such a person is going to COP29 to represent such and such an organization for the duration of the COP, and stating what you are going to be doing at the COP. Recently, hello? Hello. Okay. Recently, okay, good. Recently, they created they created what is called a nominating party. What that means is that any organization that actually wants to that you're going to be reporting for has to write that letter. Now, if you are a staff journalist, which is a media person, a journalist writing for a registered media organization, your nominating party is your organization. If you're a freelance writer, what that means is that you must get a letter from any media organization that you're affiliated to that is going to publish your stories or your, whether it's a digital platform, whether it's an online platform, whether it's a television or broadcast platform. So you must have a letter of nomination from that organization, which is going to be part of the accreditation process. Without that, you will not get that accreditation. And one thing about accreditation is that every information you put out there is the same information you are going to be using throughout the whole process of accreditation and subsequently. So if you miss out or make a mistake on anyone, your best bet is to write to the press office, press at UNFCCC.org or so, and inform them immediately And if possible, they might do a revert, but most likely you might not get a second chance to do that, except from other subsequent COPs, where you can now change that information on the platform. However, you must be registered first on the Indico platform for you to start your registration. I think the website is onlinereg.unfccc.org. So that's about accreditation, And with types of accreditation, like we stated here, general media, broadcast media, online media, and photographers. Now, it's not just about accreditation. When you're angling for accreditation, you must be sure to have you must be sure that you have links to previous work you have done as a journalist. Now, that previous work can be, if you're a podcaster, you must have links to your podcast published. If you're a television reporter, you must have links to your television reports where you can actually input those links. If you're a print journalist, the same situation. If you're an online writer, the same situation. So you must either have links to your works prepared and ready for you to upload into the platform. And these are the materials that we will be used to, that they will use in assessing whether you are currently writing or you are currently practicing as a journalist. And there's a time frame for that. You can't come with a report of maybe like a year or 2 years back and present it. They might not accept that. I use the word might, because they have a time frame. That's for 3-4 months prior to your registration process. So what that means is that they want to show that they want to determine that you are currently on spot. You've been writing news reports, not just locally, but on international news issues pertaining to climate change concerns. Next slide, please. Next slide. Hello, Sumi, can you put on the next slide?
It's already there. Next slide.
Hello, Sumi, can you put on the next slide? Okay, so good. The media center and facilities would typically feature a large media center equipped with workstations, high-speed internet, and broadcast facilities. This area is designed for the 5 stories, edit video, and coordinate with meetings. We have the press conference room. These are dedicated rooms. Conferences where delegates, negotiators, and others can address. These conferences are often live streamed and dissemination. We also have the interview zones. There are often specific zones within the venue where media can conduct interviews with delegates, experts, and other participants. If you don't have a press tag, you will not be allowed access into the media center. If you have an observer tag or you have just a normal party tag, you will not be allowed access into the press room, except the journalist who is with you indicates that there's a reason, and this is prior to your seeking for entry, there's a reason for you to be in that press room. And depending on the reason, we are going to ask you to indicate what exactly you are going there for. Currently, right now, I do think that there's a platform that is open asking media to signify whether they require dedicated spaces for interviews for broadcast, on-site broadcast rooms. You know? So the UNFCCC provides that opportunity. It provides those facilities well ahead of time for media who are interested in using those facilities, and it's basically free. It's basically free. So if you do not have access to those facilities, if you do not have a way of bringing in your own, the UNFCCC provides a lot of these facilities, and you can register for use of them prior to the conference itself. There's a window. I think the window ends by this October, though it's always on a first come, first served basis. So the earlier the media registers to make use of any of the facilities of the UNFCCC, the better. Or rather, the faster it's approved, and you can be sure that you can use those facilities. Next slide, please. The next slide. Okay. Okay, the information flow and briefings, daily briefings. The Secretariat usually holds daily briefings to update the media on the progress of negotiations, key decisions, and any emerging issues. These briefings are crucial for ensuring that journalists have accurate and up-to-date information. Access to delegates. While negotiators often have busy schedules, the media has opportunities to interact with delegates, particularly through organized press briefings and side events. Press releases and documentation. The UNFCCC provides regular press releases, updates, and access to key documents, ensuring that the media has the resources they need to report accurately. Next slide. I'm just going to run through these. Then, if there are any questions or any concerns, we can look at them together after the presentation. Next slide, to me. Now, coverage of negotiations. Plenary and open sessions are open to the media, and we can observe and report on the proceedings. However, negotiations that occur in smaller working groups or behind closed doors may not be directly accessible to the media. You have side events and exhibitions. In addition to the official negotiations, the COPs feature numerous side events, exhibitions, and civil society events. This provides additional opportunities for media coverage and for different perspectives on the issues being discussed. Next slide. Broadcasting and live streaming, we mentioned that previously, that the UNFCCC provides live streaming sessions. They live stream all the sessions, especially negotiating sessions, and it depends on what you want to watch. There are two types of media representation at the UNFCCC. There's the in-person media, and then there's the virtual media accreditation. Obviously, not every media has the opportunity of going for the COP, of being there in person. So what the UNFCCC has done is to provide an opportunity for virtual participation, and you can actually get access to most of the negotiations and events through the live streaming opportunities they have provided. Now, media partnership. From media organizations may partner with the UNFCCC to provide extensive coverage of the events. These partnerships can include special programming. Over the last few years, we've seen the Reuters actually actively partner with the UNFCCC. You know? So from the beginning of from day one to the last day, they have a series of events programs, all keyed into the UNFCCC meetings and negotiations. So basically, these are one of the few media organizations globally that are partnering with the UNFCCC. And they have the capacity, because of the large staff role, to be able to cover almost all the events of the UNFCCC. And I think that's another area we need to discuss probably after this, to see how there can be a coordination of media, maybe from Nigeria here, and we can feed off each other to ensure that we have total coverage of the whole UNFCCC meetings and so on. And that gives us a better idea, a perspective of what is actually going on, rather than depending on just the press releases that come out from such meetings, where you might not be able to get the nuances of the discussions to tailor your reports according to your organization's focus, or what you're actually looking at projecting from the conference itself. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, coordination with UN agencies. The UNFCCC often works with other UN agencies, such as the UN Development Program, UNDP, or the UN Environment Program, UNEP, to coordinate media messaging and ensure a cohesive narrative around climate action, energy and civil society involvement. Many non-governmental organizations and civil society groups also play a significant role in the media coverage of COPs. They often hold their own press conferences and release independent reports and analysis. Next slide. Challenges and limitations. Access restrictions. I think Mr. Paki mentioned this also in his presentation. While much of the COP is accessible to the media, there are often closed door negotiations where the most sensitive discussions take place. This can limit the media's ability to report on every aspect of the negotiations. Information overload, the sheer volume of events, sessions, and side activities can be overwhelming, making it challenging for media to cover everything comprehensively. I think I touched on this previously. Security and logistics. COPs are high security events, and logistical challenges such as transportation and access to key locations can sometimes pose difficulties for media coverage. I think we need to touch a little bit on this. Obviously, for most media, funding remains a challenge, and they're moving around within the UNFCCC, either the conference center itself or from your residence to the place, to the conference site, can be a bit challenging, especially with the multiplicity of events occurring simultaneously. So there has to be a certain level of intentional coordination about what you want to do, how you want to go about it, and develop a time frame or ensuring that you actually cover what you want to cover at the appropriate time. Because it's very easy to get sidetracked into meetings that might not really be your focus, into other events that might be occurring at the same time that would take you away from your primary area of focus. So there has to be some intentionality about your coverage, and you need to determine your logistics and the time frame for covering all the events you need to, as much as possible, really. Next slide. Okay, so media spaces and usage. Various media spaces have been designated to facilitate effective communication and coverage of the event. These spaces have different purposes, from providing journalists with the necessary infrastructure to access and disseminate information, to offering platforms for stakeholders to engage with the media. We've spoken about the media center, which is the central hub for journalists attending COP. It's equipped with workstations, high-speed internet, and communication tools, allowing media representatives to file stories, conduct research, and collaborate with their newsrooms. Okay, journalists also use the media center to write articles, edit videos, conduct remote interviews, and manage deadlines. It often includes spaces for print, digital, and broadcast media. Next slide. So you have the press conference rooms used for official press conferences where UNFCCC officials, government delegates, and other stakeholders provide updates and announcements and responses to media questions. And media professionals attend press conferences to gather polls, ask questions, and report on major developments. And we have the interview zones too. These are designated spaces within the top venue where journalists can conduct interviews with delegates, experts, and other participants. Now, usage. Media outlets arrange one-on-one interviews or panel discussions in these zones, often filming for later broadcast or live streaming directly from the event. They provide a more controlled environment for in-depth discussions. Now, with regard to these interview zones, a lot of times these zones have already been pre-registered for. So there's always going to be a bit of give and take, and discussions with media organizations who are already registered for these zones on allowing you to make use of them. Right now, the platform is open for those who want to make use of some of these interview zones to actually register for them, especially those who are in the broadcast media, those who are doing podcasts, and for you to actually get accreditation to use these zones. Next slide. Okay, broadcasting studios. Some venues provide dedicated broadcast studios for live or recorded TV and radio segments. So broadcast media can use this to produce live news segments, conduct interviews with key figures, and provide real-time analysis. They can also host live discussions or panel debates from these studios. The side event spaces. Side events are often hosted by NGOs, governments, and other organizations. The smaller rooms are adjacent to the main negotiations. These spaces provide additional content and perspectives on climate-related topics. Usage. Media cover these events to provide context and broader perspectives on issues discussed in the main negotiation. Next slide, please. So we also have the plenary halls, large halls where the official negotiations and plenary sessions take place. Why some of these sessions are restricted for media, some are also open for coverage. You have the exhibition areas where COP showcase initiatives, technologies, and projects from countries, NGOs, and businesses related to climate action. These exhibitions are areas are usually open to everybody with every type of tag. And sometimes you actually have even visitors from neighboring communities who are not actually been registered visiting these exhibition areas. Next slide. Okay, we have the civil society and NGO press rooms, where NGOs often have their own press rooms or briefing areas where they can hold press conferences, use force, and offer their perspectives on the negotiations. Then we also have the networking zones and lounges, where these are informal spaces which allow media professionals to network with delegates, negotiators, and other participants in a more relaxed setting. Next slide, please. So we have the virtual media spaces also, where with the rise of hybrid events, COPs now offer virtual media spaces for those unable to attend in person. I mentioned this earlier, where if you are unable to attend the COP in person, you'll actually be able to still have access to a lot of these of the content, of the meetings through the live streaming platforms, and the virtual media spaces provide this opportunity. Next slide. So at COP29 in Baku, the Nigerian civil society groups are likely to focus on various campaign messages that build on Nigeria's climate commitments and the urgent need for climate finance and actions. Basically, major civil society groups engage in campaigns around the COP29, around the COPs, either presenting or reinforcing a campaign, a concern they are campaigning on. So these messages are shaped by the country's assessment of its nationally determined contributions and the need for significant investments to meet its climate goals, particularly in the context of adaptation, mitigation, and climate resilience. Campaigns will likely emphasize the importance of securing domestic and international climate finance, addressing the impacts of climate change on vulnerable communities, and ensuring a just transition that benefits all sectors of society. Next slide. Okay. So additionally, Nigerian civil society may call for greater action on issues such as food security, energy transition, and the inclusion of marginalized voices in climate decision-making processes. Moreover, the focus on international cooperation, especially within the African continent, will be a key theme as Nigerian civil society seeks to strengthen partnerships to combat climate change effectively. Next slide. Next slide, please. So, Nigerian civil society groups are expected to focus their campaigns and messages on several issues central to Nigeria's climate goals and challenges. Include calls for enhanced climate finance, especially from developed countries to support mitigation and some damage initiatives. Additionally, there is likely to be strong advocacy for more significant domestic climate action, particularly in the energy transition and addressing the impacts of climate change on vulnerable communities. Nigerian campaigns might also emphasize the need for innovative climate finance.
Sorry, it's like we lost the presenter. So before he comes back, I think what he was trying to explain is like the major. Can anyone hear me, please? Hello.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, so I think what he was trying to explain is the major civil society campaigns for COP29, he was saying Nigerian civil society groups are expected to focus their campaign messages on several key issues central to Nigeria's climate goals and challenges. And this include calls for enhanced climate finance, especially from developed countries, to support mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage initiatives in Nigeria. And then additionally, that there is likely to be strong advocacy for more significant domestic climate action, particularly in the energy transition and addressing the impacts of climate change on vulnerable communities. And then Nigerian campaigns might also emphasize the need for innovative climate finance mechanisms, like looking at carbon pricing and green bonds, and push for a just transition that ensures the welfare of communities dependent on fossil fuels. The reassessment of Nigeria's nationally determined contributions, that's the NDCs, in preparation for COP29 reflects a broader push for aligning national policies with global action, I guess. Please, next slide. You can continue.
Thank you so much, Dami. I think we'll stop here.
And so, the conclusions. Okay.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah, I think we'll just take this because I think we've run, time is fast spent. The media structure within COPs is designed to minimize coverage of the climate negotiations and provide transparency to the global public. However, the complex nature of the negotiations and the scale of the event can present challenges. Nonetheless, the UNFCCC ensures that accredited media have the necessary resources and access to report on the critical discussions and outcomes that emerge from these conferences. So I think we are going to stop here, and thank you so very much. That has been the presentation of Mr. Michael Smire on media engagement and coordination at COP29. One thing we need to understand is that accreditation at COP29 for the media is almost seamless and is a very straightforward process. What it requires is just for you to be constantly writing, reporting, and engaging on issues that have to do with global climate change concerns. And once you are able to continuously do that on a regular basis, and you are also publishing, then it's almost certain for you to get accreditation to COP29 or whatever climate change meetings occurring at any point in time. So thank you so very much. Mr. Smire, we should thank everyone for listening to this presentation. That's a third-party input from me. And I believe he's going to be thankful for the opportunity given to him to present. We are expected to close this meeting by 3:30. However, we are going to have to take some extra minutes so that if there are any questions, please, I would like to request anybody who has a question to please raise up their hands.
Sorry.
So please raise up their hands, and you'll be called. To ask your question. We are going to be very fast about this and very brief with regards to this. Any questions that we take, responses will be given later.
Hello.
Please raise your hand up, sir, so we know who is actually, so we can call on you.
Hello.
Hello, who is speaking, please? You have the mic.
Yes, my name is Mohammed Amin Abdullahi. Hello.
Your organization also, please. You have the mic,
yes,
sir. We can hear you.
Climate Change and Environmental Health Initiative.
Please ask your question, sir.
Sir, thank you very much for this, all the presenter, the 1 and 2, very well data that shared to us today about the media and other things. So thank you very much for the whole. I well appreciate. So the issue of this accreditation, I remember when I go to this COP28 in Dubai, that is the last COP, I go through one of the organizations. So some, like others people, they want to go to this maybe cost. They don't have the organizations, but they're very interested in this environmental issue and so on, climate change, that and that. So working with this, the COPs, the members around the globe, has to have so many knowledge issue on this climate change. So, sir, as far as this accreditation is concerned, how these people can accredit? Maybe they can support themselves. There, maybe the transportation, accommodation, and so on. Those by themselves. They don't need for any organization or government to support their trip and other things. So, as far as how these people can join to us in this coming COP29 in Azerbaijan. Thank you very much.
Okay, if I heard you correctly, you are asking how aspiring participants at the COP can get funding to actually participate at the COP. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, no, maybe people that they don't have the organizations, but they can sponsor themselves to that the COP, because the important about the knowledge and communicating with the people around the world on that particular issue, most especially climate change and so on, environmental issue. How these people can accredit to participate in that incoming COPs.
Wonderful. Mr. Baki, would you like to take that question, please?
Okay, can you say the question again? I think I missed it at some point because of network.
His question is this: how can individuals who are not affiliated to specific organizations can actually get accreditation to the COPs?
Okay, thank you for that question. So yes, you do not have to be affiliated to an organization to get accreditation. By that, I mean you must not be working in an organization that is an accredited observer organization to the UNFCCC before you get accreditation. But once you have an intention of going to the COP, you can identify and approach organizations that are accredited so that they can accredit you to attend. So they will accredit you, you will carry a badge that carries their name.
Exactly.
But you are not working with the organization, but they have just created that space for you to participate.
Okay. So, thank you very much.
Mr. Olorunfemi, would you like to show more light on that?
Can I ask my question now, please? I've been raising my hand since.
Hello. Okay, please, Mr. Kazim Ahmed, right? You can ask your question.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Ahmed Kazim. I work with Sun Africa. Sun Africa is a private renewable energy developing company that develop. So as we know, the importance of private organization cannot be overemphasized already, that to achieve all the climate change goal set by each party will require at least some form of private investors in it. For example, in Nigeria, that we say that the focus this year will be on energy transition and all that. There is no way there will not be some form of investment from the area of private sector. Now, and private organization from your presentation are not, there is no accreditation directly for private organizations. So I don't know, how do we get accreditation for private organizations? Because, for example, my organization have been doing some things. We have developed some projects, energy access projects, trying to, which is basically solar. We are trying to make sure that the environment is clean, and we are abolishing the use of fossil fuel and all that. So we want to attend, but then how do we get to attend it? And if we are attending, we just don't want to attend and be in the green zone. Of course, you want to be in the blue zone where you can talk to people who can make decisions for each party and each country, I mean. So how do we secure blue badges in our situation?
Okay, I think your question is similar to the first question. However, maybe Mr. Olorunfemi would like to throw a bit more light on that, and probably do an emphasis on the questionnaire.
Hello, sir. Mr. Simire is on. He's on now.
Yes, I know he's on. I'm throwing this question to Mr. Olorunfemi.
Okay. Can you hear me? I have
can hear you.
Okay, I had some background disturbance. I hope it's not that much over there. So for the question, right, it's not also everyone accredited by.
Hello, Mr. Boyega. I think your network is breaking. Can we please ask everyone to mute their mics while he's speaking? If you need to speak, just raise your hand and you'll be called. We can hear you, sir.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that for such people who have demonstrated projects that have solutions to climate change, you may have to look out for organizations that already have observer status with UNFCCC and can accommodate you within their slots. From there, you have a badge. The organization that would accommodate you with their own badge may not have funding to also get you to attend COP. And in this instance, you may have to also source for funding to be able to get yourself to attend the COP. But what is also important is, to some of us with existing projects, what happens is usually discuss attendance of some of these conventions within your project, so that can be taken care of within budget. So there are also a number of organizations that are ready to provide funding. And one of the key reasons why we are putting this together is for us to have this information, and at the same time to put ourselves together within a network that we're able to share with one another funding opportunities around this time towards COP and be able to have us attend. So if you're not currently on the WhatsApp platform that we put together, please share your phone number and you can be added to this platform. There might likely be opportunities for funding which we are not directly linked to, but of course, other members are willing to share information that will be of help. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Olorunfemi. Incidentally, I want to inform the House that the session that Mr. Michael Simire is currently taking questions. And we have a question from Mr. Ogunleye Samuel, who is asking, how can we have funding? I think Mr. Olorunfemi addressed that. The question is, can we have funding for attendance? I don't know whether it's with regards to the earlier question the man from South Africa asked, or if that has to do with media funding. Well, I think I want to deepen that. How can journalists get funding for participation at COPs if they are not fellows of maybe they do not have access to fellowships and probably some organizational funds? How can journalists have funding to attend COPs? Mr. Simire, would you like to take that, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Good afternoon, we can hear you, sir.
Hello, can you hear me? Thank you very much. Please, I want to apologize for not being available earlier to take my paper. I was very busy in another very, very important assignment. So the question concerning funding for the journalists. There are several funding opportunities open to journalists, though it's limited now. Program is one of the opportunities whereby you have some organizations that will offer journalists fellowships to attend the COPs. Fellowships mean that they would give you full sponsorship, buy you a ticket, accommodation, your feeding, and your living allowance during the 2 weeks of the COP. Some, depending on some will offer you one week, maybe the first week or the second week. But I know the EGN, as the Art Journalism Network, they offer the 2 weeks fellowship. Incidentally, they just about 2 days ago they released the 20 fellows that they have chosen for the COP29 in Baku, and thankfully we have a Nigerian there. We have one Nigerian, and it was very competitive. For the first time, I didn't see a Ghanaian or a Kenyan, so there's still slots to be filled. So back to the funding thing. So it's there for the journalists to explore prior to the COP all these opportunities. You can go online and see. Climate Tracker, I think they're still also offering fellowships, but I believe they are all closed now. You can also go personally, can approach organizations, some NGOs, some international NGOs, and approach them and tell them what you have done, the value of your work. I know a friend of mine that succeeded in this. He approached an organization in the US and told them why they should sponsor him to this recent African climate conference. He backed it up with his works, what he has done. And he was even saying that, okay, even if it's past funding, he was surprised when they reacted to him, they gave him a full funding. So it depends on us. We have to be proactive too as journalists. We have to look for the opportunities. And before we do such things, make sure that we have been writing good quality stories that will impress their potential funders, So that is it. We can also approach our employers and tell them the reason why sponsoring, having a journalist in the COP will benefit the organization, what it's going to bring, what the stories you are going to write, the quality of stories you are going to write, how you're going to make a difference. They might be impressed with your proposal, and they will try to sponsor you. Though I'm aware of the situation whereby media are increasingly becoming reluctant to sponsor environmental climate change related sessions. So, but then there are exceptions. If we are exceptional as environmental journalists, we can get these opportunities. I think that's. I don't know whether I've been able to answer your question. Over to you, Sam.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Simire. We have time for maybe just one or two more questions, and we wrap this up. Any more questions? Are we all good here? Okay, there's a question here on the chat from where can those of us in advocacy or civic engagement search for funding opportunities? I think Mr. Femi has answered that you put your name and number down, you'll be added to the platform, and where they will present some of those opportunities. And because there are always opportunities around the clock, and you can have access to that information. Any other question?
Something. I think this one is for Mr. John Baki. Someone's asked is it possible for one organization to be a member of two constituencies? Can you? Hello.
Hello, Mr. Baki.
Can you hear me?
Answer that question? Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, it is possible to be a member of more than one constituency as an organization. So yes, it is possible, as long as you feel you have the capacity to manage the interactions between the two constituencies you want to belong to. It's fine and good, but sometimes it is better to just choose a particular constituency where you focus your engagements through. But it is possible to be a member of more than one constituency. I know some organizations that are members of the Women and Gender Constituency, and they also belong to the civil society, the general civil society constituency. So yes, it is possible.
Can I ask a question here? Thank you so very much, Mr. Baki. But this question is based on field funding, obviously. Is it possible? Because over the years, we've seen that most media organizations do not have the capacity to send their staff to cover COP. So a lot of times, these journalists are left to their own devices to source for funds any way they can. So what that implies is that at COPs, you see quite a number of journalists, trying to hustle to recoup those funds or get funds to manage their travels, accommodations, feeding, and all that, which represents a huge drain on their time and also their capacity to focus properly. Is there a possibility that through your good offices and those of the organizing platforms for this session, that we can have a media media funding platform where media can actually tap into getting funds for such important global climate meetings. Now, not necessarily just the fellowships that are out there that are restricted to maybe one or two persons from the country, if possible, and so on. And we can have an in-country media funding platform. Is that a possibility? And how can we go about this? Because I'm pretty sure most of the media here are interested in that. And a lot of times you have accreditation, you have your visa, but because of funding, it's difficult to go, or it's a last minute, and then you are scrambling just to find out how you can make up the resources to either come back or even maintain a reasonable stay. So, Mr. Baki, Mr. Olorunfemi, this is to both of you, really.
Okay, so if I will go first to answer that, I would say yes, it is possible to put together a funding to support these trips. But I would think that the associations of either climate reporters, the media organizations that are reporting on climate, or the different environment media organizations can decide to maybe come together and try to put up that fund prior to the COP so that they can get resources and put into that fund. And when time comes, they can support the number of journalists that the funding can support to attend the COP. I know for many organizations, they already have projects that have factored in trips to different conferences. So that is why many civil society organizations, you always see them at COPs, because they factor in their projects those travel grants. Even at WEP, we have some grants that have taken care of attendance or participating at global environment conferences, COP and others that covers up to 2 or 3 years. So it is something that one has to be strategic, not when the COP is coming close. When the COP is coming close, the pressure is much and there is little to get. But when you plan ahead as a body, it becomes very easier to get funding to attend and also push your demand. And mind you, let me also say that it is not possible that you sponsor all the journalists you want to go to COP, because funding is involved and funding is limited. So it's just to be strategic as a body and decide who you want to go and try to raise funding for. So on that, on the funding for that, I say yes, it is possible, but you have to start early and be more strategic.
Well, thank you so very much for that.
there?
Mr. Olorunfemi, you want to ask something, or Mr. Simiri?
Okay, can I come in there?
Yes, please, you can.
Yes, yes. You said something about a journalist finding their way to the COP. Yes, there have been instances of some journalists sourcing for funding and getting to the COP, but unfortunately, what they're able to raise is not entirely what they're supposed to. So you see them in the process trying to either managing or trying to do things that will make them to get some additional funding, and in the process they lose focus. They're not able to, to concentrate on what they came to the COP for, and the entire purpose is defeated. So that's true. So concerning the funding for journalists, we, as NDNN Temporary Development Network, we have done that. We have thought of that because we've had experiences from the EJN. I'm an EJN fellow, two-time fellow of EJN, and I'm also a partner and a trainer. And I've been encouraged to come up with something similar here. So their funding is mostly focused in the Asia Pacific. So it's difficult for them to transfer their funding to the West African region. So that's why we're having challenges. But we have done several proposals to do a fellowship program. If it's just about 5 journalists, we've sent it out, succeeded. But we are still trying. Our plan is to do it within the ambit, within the style of the EGN, fellowship program. And I will know that this can also be realized by the suggestion of a fund, which Mr. Baki just gracefully highlighted now. So we need to do it strategically. We need to start early and approach several organizations that can help us. I knew that some years ago, some years ago, the United collaborating with the Federal Ministry of Environment gave a lot of they gave opportunities for journalists to attend the COPs. Part of the Nigerian delegation, I've been a beneficiary of this several times, but along the line, perhaps because of the immediate funding, or whether the focus of the UNDP and the government have changed, I don't think they are doing this any longer. But it can still be revived if we approach them and tell them the reason why they can get why they should do this, because they were actually very media friendly and they got a lot of leverage. They were very friendly. In fact, there was one of the sessions that I was as a media person. I was part of the training as a negotiator. I was trained as a negotiator, and I attended one COP as a what do you call it, as a party. Even though when I got to the COP, I felt like the fish out of water because I was not wearing the media badge. So all these things can still come back again. It depends on how we can come together and strategize and approach all these organizations, UNDP, the Climate Change Department, the NCCC, and several other organizations as well. I hope that addresses the question.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Simire. That was enlightening. I guess we've come to the end of this session. If there are any other questions, please just type them, send them to the chat box. The speakers will look at them a bit later, respond to them, and the responses will be sent across to you. And if you haven't filled in the attendance sheet, please endeavor to do so. Also, put down your number for you to be included in the platform where there will be further engagements on this, and so that you can have consistent access to current information with regards to CSOs and media engagement at the COPs and at COP29 and subsequently. So, okay, I think we have, we seem to have, okay, please, Dami, send the attendance sheets again to the platform. So I'm going to call on Mr. Simire. in the absence of, I'm just going to call on, I do not know if Madam Akusa is still with us. I know she had another engagement, but then I'm going to call on Mr. Simire to please wrap this session up for us and give us a vote of thanks so we can close this this workshop for today.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. I want to believe that we had a very interesting session. We were able to learn and to share with each other. And I want to believe that we'll be able to use this opportunity to make some changes in our various places of endeavor. I want to thank everybody for making out time from their very busy schedule to attend this engagement. And we hope that you have a nice day. Have a very nice week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you so very much, everybody, once again. Please endeavor to fill in the form and put send across your names and numbers for further engagement. And please, for those of us who have gotten accreditation or yet to be accredited to the UNFCCC to attend COP29, the opportunity is still open. The platform is still open. For those of you who haven't gotten your visas yet but have gotten accreditation, the e-visa platform is open right now. So please do endeavor to get all that filled out as quickly as possible. And while we all look for funding to get us to COP29 and have an engaging conference. Thank you so much for attending this workshop, and we hope to see you next time. Have a good day, everyone.
Hello, can I just chip in something?
Please do.
Hello. Yeah, please, when you're filling the form for the visa form, ensure that you do not use because they need a copy of your visa page. Use a scanned copy, not the one that you use your phone to take. I have about 2 people that the application has been rejected. I guess they have to reapply now. Make sure it's clear. They said it's not clear. And make sure you have a determined hotel accommodation. You can go to booking.com and do a booking. I don't think they really need a booking, but they just want the hotel name, whichever one, because I have not done yet. But make sure those 2 things are very important so that you don't get your application rejected. Thank you.
And if you're not able to do that, please get across to Madam Dami. Yeah, she has some money. She will do consultancy for you on that. Dami, am I correct? Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.